Good evening, everybody. System Chonk here with the 95th episode of our first run through the House of Light expansion on YouTube, expansion for Book of Hours, playing as the Archaeologist. I'm the Librarian of Hush House, and this journal will record what arose from my crime and my curse. The Archaeologist's dearest wish when they came to the house was to record a history where their crime could be forgiven or redefined, but you may complete the game by recording any history. You might wish to begin your studies with the Skolakosophy wisdom. I opened a tomb and found too late that it was a prison. The plague that I released is now my shadow, or perhaps I am its reflection. It is too late to set matters right, but it is never too late to protect the future from the past. In Hush House, I can do no harm. Perhaps I can even make amends. So we're starting the week, which means I'm going to be particularly ignorant about what I was up to. I do see here that I've got notes for solutions and separations and serpents and venoms at 4 and 5. But I do wonder why Edict's Liminal... Oh no, I also see Edict's Liminal at +1, so let me just see. Okay, so there's just one part that I'm a little confused by here. I've got an Inks of Revelation, and it's not immediate... Oh, no, I get it now. Okay, so Edict's Liminal to 7 is both from Inks of Revelation and Edict's Liminal. Never mind. So that's going to be the that'll be the first priority for tonight. It looks like I've already queued up a bunch of memory generation, so I'm hoping that was my avoiding my more idiotic tendencies. So I think probably what I will do is just unpause and let the start. Sorry. I try not to treat this like a live broadcast, but if I need to sneeze, I don't have a whole lot of options. So, but yeah, I think probably what I'll do is I'll let the start of the day run through, and then we'll sort of see where we're at after. And we are already talking to Denzel. Okay. Now, I guess in a perfect world, I would maybe try to open up one of these rooms. Again, the fact that we can bring in Denzel is a nice feature. And then it shouldn't be that hard for us to open up the Wormnod kitchen with Winter. But as always, the question becomes, when do I want to commit those resources? And then, of course, we've also talked about how where do I put these? Okay, so we can move the coffee out of the pantry. We can put that here. Right. Lots of almonds. I definitely saw that we could get the honey there. Okay, there we go. Don't know if we can get all the almonds, but we'll give it a try. Hey, almost worked. Okay, so that should make me feel a little bit better about cooking. I blew it. We are going to have to store all the stuff that we get for, I believe it should be sugar and flour at least, but I'll worry about that when it comes in. This has got to work, come on. There we go. Okay, so we don't have anything to do with the Edict's Liminal quite yet. It does a lot with silence, this man. I also know if I really want to sort of focus down on it, I could probably work out a much more elaborate plan through the This may not be the smartest thing to do with so many memories coming in, but unwrap, unbox, unleash. So I could come up with a more elaborate plan so far as sort of my path through the Tree of Wisdoms is concerned, but we still have the Queens of the Rivers, and we still have a bunch of different texts that I can read here. So I'm not quite ready to say we're going to throw all caution into the wind and go crazy with the Tree of Wisdoms. But I think probably a serious think about some of the next steps after we get Edict's Liminal up wouldn't hurt. Okay, The Beekeeper's Ends, Dialogues with Bees and Uses for Honey, as erratically recorded by Ricardo Milagro, gardener of Hush House in Musgrave's time. Milagro spends an entire chapter on his hatred of wasps, which he describes as the vile pretenders. Milagro claims that bees retain many traditions passed down from earlier and greater branches of their species, and that they are fiercely jealous of these traditions being passed to lesser insects, and insist above all on an oath of secrecy. Tragically, therefore, he is unable to describe these more substantial and powerful traditions. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done, and so am I, but I've earned my pay. On Imperfections, Pomander, Lightsmith, and Lanternlong describes the process of transinhabitation, which he calls a manifestation of imperfection. Lanternlong lack bodies, and so cannot normally leave the mansis, but they can steady glint in the physical world by establishing a road of glass. Pomander notes with disgust that the Order of Long called the Obliviates refer to it as scrying, which he considers a debased term. Pomander explains the benefits of transinhabitation, that a Lanternlong can affect the senses and thoughts of those nearby, that they can even enter their spirits, and that they can employ the senses of those inhabited to experience again the scent of blossom and season. This seems to be what interests him most. He insists that a Lanternlong should only ever inhabit a mirror of silver, not silvered glass, but declines to explain why. The Crossing to Noon, the mystic Garcia Sowry gives a picturesque account of the adventures of Franklin Bancroft, Prince of Wines, and Ava de Wolf, the Pale Lady, on their way to the hidden island of Noon. For a long time the Blackbone pondered her next move, until the moon dared to peep from behind a cloud, and the prince completed the composition of his third sestina, but the lady met the blind gaze of its open pores, waiting for the tide. Garcia Sowry acknowledges in an epilogue that it is widely known that Ava in fact tragically drowned herself and her twin infant granddaughters without ever making such a journey. But he adds contemptuously, it is also widely known that the city unbuilt will so remain, that only one history is ever written, and that Janus is a mansis prank. And we've got... oh, Pripyat. Right, that was a replacement for here, although I don't think we have what we need for Edict's Liminal, so I want to maybe just double check where we are with that. So again, to level up Edict's Liminal, first of all I need to wait, but it's a knock and moth. So we've got the pattern, we've got the salt, we've got the impulse. So why did I think I was able to level that up? Let me just take a quick second here, because I believe I worked out a plan. Salt, impulse, pattern, stolen secret, and a name day riddle. So for some reason I didn't go for the stolen secret. And then the name day riddle is going to require some work. Okay, so I think I probably made a bit of a blunder here. Also, if I recall correctly, name day riddles are not that easy for me to make, so... Okay, so I will go for another impulse, and then I will also go for I also want to get the stolen secret. So that'll cover me for the start of Edict's Liminal. Less clear to me if I want to give up the occult scrap here. But maybe that's a conversation for another time. Okay, so if I'm trying to move solutions and separations and serpents and venoms, feel like I already did this with all the books, but yes. Okay, so there's 26 enticements, 7 torments, so that gives resurgences and emergences, which I could actually use with Edict's Liminal if I needed. I think there's a decent argument for me to say maybe I shouldn't be trying to read some of these texts right now. And I'm actually trying to remember if I had... Okay, so we do also still have some curses to remove. I believe the herbs and infusions should be good to go now. Ah, alright, I'm getting this now. So I am already working on the books that I will be using to level up the texts. This explains why I didn't have the memories. Okay. So it is, again, it does feel a little bit of an idle day just because we're sitting down waiting for so many timers to finish off, but I'm actually feeling a bit better about where we are overall. I mean, obviously in terms of getting some plate spinning, I have plenty of elements of the soul and there's more things that I can be doing inside the house. But at the moment I'd kind of like to see where the memories settle. So... we've got a bunch of sugar, which I imagine we don't have room for anymore. Guest sugar. Butter, not flour. Oh, right, because we've got plenty of flour. Fair enough. All right, I'll live with it. So I can't move up Edict's Liminal quite yet, but we should get that in about a minute. Does a lot with silence, this man. So once these basics are done, so again, I kind of covered this a little bit. So there's the Edict's Liminal that I'm working on. There's the lessons that I'm going to be getting from these other texts. Probably that's the time that I will want to have a bit of a think in terms of how I navigate the Tree of Wisdoms. I think some of the moves that I'm going to be making are specifically intended to unlock a couple of other parts of the tree, but right now, let's just focus on getting through the homework that I've given myself. The Debate of 7 Cups, distillations of spirit recorded by the alchemist who identifies himself in the foreword as but Sir Thomas Browne's reflection. Time is a pure flame, and we live by an invisible sun within us. Darkness and light divide the course of time, and until that course is run, eternity remains history's bedfellow. Sorrow, then, is sense's final solvent, and even a tear, should it fall enow, might destroy a stone. So that's 2 solutions and separations. Ah, the impulse. Okay, so unfortunately we're going to lose that, but... and the unhatched hymns, hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Menascate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next, madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the meniscate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the meniscate as the sister of Janus, mother of shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. So this gives us Sacra Solas Invicti, and we get a Savage Hymn, which is actually a little tricky to deal with. Because we've got the Bittersweet Certainty, Stolen Secrets. We have these nice little cubbies for the smaller memories, but we're actually, like, we're kind of out of room for those now. Everything else is a bit larger. So let's go. I think what I'll do here is I will make this for storms. We may have to change this later. But I feel a little more comfortable with this division. Okay, and I don't think there's a couple things that I might be able to do to commit things in terms of the memories, but I think I'm just going to take the hit of the remaining readings and then see what remains. Asite supplications, prayers addressed to the horned axe by the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot. If we should pass not, let our enemies pass unto their deserved end. One prayer describes how sufficient moon aspect can be used with Tridesma Hira with almost any egg to hatch the stone's children, the sky's daughters, the sea's sons. So, another impulse for me. Our Orpiment Exultant. So the nice thing about this is I could use this with Hokabald of Posend to invite him not just to a salon, but to actually finish off the Royal Endeavor, if I was so inclined. So I'm going to put this on the shelf. We'll try and decide what we want to do with that. This is an Incastum Terminale, one of the great inks. Use it with your journal to record a history and fulfill your reason for coming to Hush House, if you so choose. Better now. And Deaths and Their Evasions, Father Stanislav John Schaller writes of the means and limitation of passage between the orders of the Mansus, no long names hours. Unusually, Father John has written this book in Fusine, for, he says, especial secrecy. He speaks very cautiously of the exceptions that can sometimes be made to the edicts of Chancel and Calyptra, and hints at the means by which he successfully returned a lantern long to flesh. Schaller mentions most cautiously of all that he has been permitted to see a book which speaks more deeply on the matter, but that it was surrendered into the shadow of a covenant stone of the Watchman's Tree. It can be retrieved if the 99th wink is reserved under the edict's liminal. So we still need to wait for the name day riddle out of here. But I am a little curious about my plan. So the Sacra Solis Invicti's kind of thrown me for a loop here because I didn't actually write that down. I'll probably just move it up, but I'd like to have a clearer idea. Oh, actually, hang on. I did write this down, so I needed to get this to level 6. So I think now would not be a bad time for me to actually allocate these memories. So this gives me a start. Solutions and separations and serpents and venoms. So solutions and separations, I think I was talking about this before, it's kind of competing with Edict's Liminal right now. So I probably should just leave that aside. So if that's true... Well, okay, actually, sorry, there is one other... No, hang on, because Serpents and Venoms has its own thing going on. Yeah. So I do want to move solutions and separations up. I want to prioritize Edict's Liminal if I can first. And while I'm doing that, Sacrosolus Invicti needs lantern and sky, so presumably we just throw these two at it for a start. It's about 30 seconds, so we might as well get one of these out of the way. And in this case, it has to be the Fost, because I've already used the Whist. I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. Alright, so I have a clearer idea in terms of where all this is going. The other thing I should have done was prepped for... So there's a couple things that I need to think about here in terms of the Edict's Liminal. So we've got the Assault, the Impulse, the Pattern, the Stolen Secret, and the Named a Riddle. But it's maybe not so clear to me where I get my 6th memory from, except maybe the Occult Scrap, and I'd like to hold back on using that if I can. So... perhaps the better call for me right now would be to focus on those solutions and separations until I have a clearer idea of what I'd like to do with Edict's Liminal. And that suggests a couple... So there's one implication of that is a couple of things that I can do for memory generation. So for instance, if I'm trying to level up solutions and separations, I basically need a total of 5 memories, and as it happens, those 5 memories are ones that I can generate, I can generate those through all the readings. I'm not going to, just because I can take something like the Pattern and the Salt, and we don't need to worry about Denzel overriding any of them. But it's a pretty straightforward path. I do need to have a think about how I'm going to handle the last push for Edict's Liminal, though. So I think we'll just stick with the 2 right now. And if I feel like it, I can actually maybe take another push on Sacrosolus Invicti, because I can restore the Fost. Yeah, I can restore the Fost before the end of the day. Is this the way to the wood? But perhaps the wood is not a suitable place for a librarian. Okay. And the skill is now level 3. Its power aspects have also increased. So I will move this up just so I can keep track of everything. And then for Edict's Liminal, did I forget to collect you? Yes, I did. Just right-clicking if it's not clear why they're moving straight into their slots. At last, I'm something of an authority in this. Improve the skill to level 6. And I feel like I'm missing a really obvious step in terms of getting the last memory that I need for the level 7, but I think it's probably not a bad idea for me to... Basically, I want to focus on the things that I have in hand. There is a reasonable question as to, where I would ask, like, okay, so what exactly am I saving the Occult Scrap for? It's helpful to have something as a persistent memory, and I don't have the newspaper yet. But again, if I'm never going to use it for that reason, why have it, right? It's effectively the same as not having it if I never use it in that way. So I'm open to it with Edict's Liminal, but I'd like to see if maybe there's another option that presents itself first. It's kind of the regret minimization approach that I take for this. So we are already working on solutions and separations. So we've got one here. I'll maybe take another FET as an aside. So I would want 3 memories for Solutions and Separation and 3 for Sacra Solis and Victi. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we'll have 1 spare left over. I'm going to prioritize using the core, the health, and the metal first, and that's just to see if we can keep the tryst for a for another use. Oh yes, and of course, I already have the Solace, so there's probably more that I can work with. We'll do the Queen's turn. Get another pattern. I guess maybe an impulse? Okay, so that should cover me for Solutions and Separations. We'll need to get a a Shapt or a Fet. Right, sorry, we already have the Fet. So from there, I will want to... So I've got the Solace. I think probably our safest bet would be to just generate music. So Instruments of the Heart, and then Intimations of Skin. I know everybody's just dying to hear that one again. Actually, I should have used the metal. Too late now, though. Actually, you know what? I can use Glimmering, which isn't exactly one that people have... I think people have heard quite a bit of that one as well. But it at least gives us a little more variety. Should probably also keep in mind that I have the Watchful Tantra, which would give me purifications and exaltations, and I don't believe I've actually decided where that fits yet. I do have it though, right? Yeah, it's right here. So I should probably consider what I want to do with that in the long run. But right now, this is more of a question of how do I want to use my Elements of the Soul for the rest of the day. So 1 for sure, I want to restore the Faust. Oh, for heaven's sake. Okay, so we got the Storm from Denzel, which will help us level up Sacra Solis and Victi. And then... I feel like there's a bit more that we should be able to do over the course of the day, but... As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. Alright, and the skill is now level 6, its power aspects have also increased. So, let's go... Actually, we're just shy of what we need, so again, I should be working out the... Should be working out the allocation here, so... Yeah, we don't have anybody... Okay, that's not entirely true. There's a couple things that I could throw towards Solutions and Separations, but it's a little bit like the Edict's Liminal. I'm not actually doing that yet. A Pale Lady and a Prince of Wines, an anonymous biography of Ava de Wolf, last of the de Wolfs, focused rather salaciously on her personal troubles and intrigues. Ava de Wolf is engaged to one Abraham Wheellock, but he leaves her at the altar. Furious and humiliated, she returns to Brankrug and is not seen in London again. 3 days after her departure, Abraham Wheellock's body is washed up near Gravesend. His face is so badly pecked by birds that he is only identified by his belongings. These include a waxed pouch containing a letter addressed to Wheellock, whose contents seem to show he is a spy in the pay of the Austrians. Subsequent investigation suggests that the letter is a forgery, but the matter remains obscure. Lord Franklin Bancroft, sometimes called the Prince of Wines, begins a series of visits to Brankrug House. His relationship with Ava becomes a source of scandal. Ava is by now 49, but rumors persist for years of a de Wolf Bancroft heir. Ava's biographer claims that before her drowning death, her child by Bancroft was adopted by their friends the Southies, that the child became the sister of the later poet laureate Robert Southey. No real evidence is provided in support of this claim. and The Raptures of Forculus, the first volume of Abbot Geoffrey's hypothetical theological debates in the Socratic mode. If Janus were an hour, Forculus might be counted among his names, but that door remains closed, and so Forculus is not. Geoffrey discusses the signs that mark doors, which might permit or forbid access to certain thoughts and dreams, speculating, carefully, on which of the sanctioned hours might teach or govern each sign. Okay, so the Sacrosalis Invicti is limited because of the sweet bones, but we have enough to be able to move up solutions and separations. I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. So just so I can clarify, we've got the pattern. This is music. This is impulse, and that's salt. So from there we'd use the fet or the trist, more likely the trist, and then the fost that shows up. So we are all good. And then I'll probably keep the intuition overnight, but I don't feel compelled to pick one or the other. And then if I recall correctly, getting solutions and separations at a higher level allowed me to go further along the Skolakosophy wisdom. I may be wrong on that, but I believe that's going to be one of the things that we can open up later on in the week. Alright, The Queen's Turn, a 16th century translation of the Barrowchild's account of Lagia's turn, when Lagia, the queen unsated, was offered the opportunity to enter the service of the Hours of the Triple Knot, as long as she repudiated her brother-lover Antaios. Lagia accepts, setting aside the arts of the low red sun associated with Antaios. She bargains, however, for freedom for her daughters. The Hours of the Triple Knot accept casually, knowing that Lagia has devoured her daughters, but wily Lagia has decided, in the secret hollow of her heart, that she will adopt any who ask, if they can prove their fierceness. The traditions described here, the ones generally described as hill and hollow, are associated with Lagia before her turn, but now that she's a name of the Red Grail, they might also be safely used before an altar of the Triple Knot. On Thursley's Ivories and Lovelies, Fiona Ayrshire recounts her visits in dreams to the Red Church in the Mansis, and her conversations with the names of the Red Grail. An hour, Ayrshire explains, may usually only have 7 names, but since the Thursley's Ivories and Lovelies, who usually comprise the Red Grail's names, are constantly attempting to devour one another, the names of other hours, that number fluctuates. Lovelies, the freshest of the Grail's names, usually adopt the characteristics of whatever they devour, be it an Ivory, a Thursley, or occasionally an entirely different kind of name. A practical application of the principle is described. The arts of resurgences and emergences, in the presence of sufficiently potent Grail aspect, can be used to feed a pale Mommet to its successor doll, creating something notably more avid. The Instruments of the Heart, Sister Isabel, then precentress of the Abbey Church of St. Brendan's, engages in dialogues with a heart-long of a kind called a Dwendrazon that has taken partial possession of her body. The Dwendrazon, like all its kind, usually dwells in the Mansis, but can enter the physical world by manifesting as music and take possession of a willing or semi-willing mortal who hears and loves that music, like Isabella. Isabella records her dreams of the High Mansis, where she is accorded the Dwendrazon status and titles. In return, the Dwendrazon enjoys what it calls Caesura, a welcome oblivion. Our mostly blessing is that we may never cease, except in Caesurae. There is something more that Isabella refers to as the Caesura Magna, but laments that her Dwendrazon will not tell her exactly what that might be. Cardia's Delights, the 3rd volume of Abbot Geoffrey's hypothetical theological dialogues in the Socratic mode. If Janus were an hour, Cardia might be counted among his names, but the world has never turned in such a manner, and so she is not. Geoffrey discusses the living signs, signs which change their shape and whose flexibility is part of what makes it identifiable. He gives as one example the paradox of the hinge, and draws comparisons with the names called twins, who would be considered hours beyond the church. He hints at the amethyst vessel, which can be sanctified by the great signs in the presence of Nock. And finally, Glimmerings, which actually isn't necessary, an anonymous prison diary written by a dreamer convicted of oniric irresponsibility and confined to the cucurbit. The prisoner is plainly terrified and bewildered by their situation, and has been unable to wrangle a coherent explanation out of anyone, but the dreams keep coming, and they keep writing them down. Snow, broken mirrors, half-heard sky music, flowers of white, red, and black, a blood-streaked winter dawn, the most notorious signifiers of oniric risk, fantastically vivid and detailed. No wonder they were locked up. Their final recorded dream is of a worm jewel beneath Brandkrug Isle, which they open with a key carved from their finger bone. Alright. So, what we can do here is, I know I'm at time, but let's queue up the solutions and separations, because I had intended to bring that to 4. And we'll use FET for that. Another fruit plucked from knowledge's tree. And then on Wednesday's episode, what we'll do is we will level up Sacrosolus and Victi. So that will leave me the question about what to do with the Inks of Revelation. I'm still inclined to leveling this up to level 7, and that will mean using the Occult Scrap. But the difference here is that while I don't think it's likely, or maybe even possible, that we'll get fog during the summer, I'm not 100% sure. Like, essentially what I'm doing right now is kind of buying myself a bit of time to have an idea in terms of maybe where I might get an extra moth or an extra knock. And if I do wind up getting that, it means that I'm able to level up Edict's Liminal to level 7 without having to give up the Occult Scrap. Which, again, I shouldn't be scared of. You know, in the end, these resources kind of exist to be used, but I don't want to carelessly get rid of it. Anyway, all of that will be in a future episode. Thank you very much for watching. I will be back on Wednesday to continue this playthrough. Until then, take care.